right, what's going on, guys? Producer Casey here, New York's #2 sports show with the man, Derek Fask here. He came and visited me in Nashville, guys, and we just got some news earlier today about a certain quarterback of the New York Football Giants being benched, probably for good, so we figured we would reflect on that. So, Derek, how you doing, buddy? How you feeling?
Doing good, Casey. Happy to be here. And it's kind of funny how things come full circle on a personal level
Yeah.
because Nashville was where I was, and of course we were,
Yes.
when Daniel Jones was drafted in 2019.
In the pouring rain, we watched it.
Yeah, in the pouring rain, and I wasn't thrilled about it then.
No, you weren't. You definitely were not. You were very despondent.
Very, very despondent. Here it is. I'm in Nashville and, ready to have a great time. And Daniel Jones is drafted, and I wasn't really thrilled about it. However, he actually really had a very good rookie year. We'll talk about that a little bit. But Now here I am back in Nashville, and Daniel Jones, the era is basically over. He has been benched for Tommy DeVito. So the Giants make the switch, and not a surprise given the fact that Giants are 2-8. They're coming off their bye week, and there's a $23 million injury guarantee. So for all the reasons, it makes all the sense in the world, but this is it. And some could say that this is the sixth season of Daniel Jones, that it was far too long, but it is now over.
Pretty crazy. Yeah. So Tommy DeVito is going to come in for you guys. Tommy Cutlets, had some moderate success, if you want to call it, last year when he filled in for Daniel. I guess, what do you expect from that at the moment right now? Just looking ahead real quick to the rest of the season here.
Yeah,
before we get into the nitty gritty with Daniel.
Yeah, it's interesting because with Tommy DeVito, I kind of felt like they were going to go to Drew Lock just because he had been the backup all season.
Yeah.
They paid him $5 million, but Tommy DeVito also provides the fan base more entertainment value. And I do think that there is some level of that because, let's be honest, wins, while they are important to some, and maybe there are jobs in the line still, I think the fact that DeVito had some modicum of success last season does factor in. And Drew Lock, in the few moments that he was in, whether it be preseason, in relief of Daniel Jones against the Eagles, Locke has not really looked good at all. So that was a little bit of a surprise. For me, there's no criticism, and I'm in a position where I would like the Giants to lose games. And so as bad as Daniel Jones is, I do think that it can get worse and potentially will get worse, with whether it be Locke or, in this case, DeVito. That said, he went on a 3-game winning streak last year, so I wouldn't be surprised if wins come of the way of Tommy DeVito, but it is definitely interesting, and I think to probably non-Giant fans, Tommy Cutlets and everything that came with that being in there is probably a little bit more interesting than Drew Lock would have been.
Totally, yeah. The media is going to eat this all up for sure, but let's just let's just get into it with Daniel Jones. I guess let's talk about the beginning and I guess the span of his career, and I guess what you've seen and how you feel about the whole thing.
Yeah. So, and this is, I think, the best time to talk about it. Look, there will be a time when I think we'll discuss it again, when inevitably he is released in the offseason. That's a formality at this point, but we have definitely, barring something crazy, we have seen Daniel Jones take his last snap as a New York Giant. He is now the third string quarterback. He will be inactive, an emergency backup. Drew Lock will stay as number 2. Daniel Jones, in some ways I feel bad for him. He was drafted 6th overall in 2019.
6th overall, yep.
And there was such backlash at the time. Eli Manning was still there, but it was towards the end. There was 1 year of overlap between Eli and Daniel Jones, and I think a lot of Giants fans, myself included, wanted a new quarterback, and Dave Gettleman really was high on Daniel Jones. It wasn't a great draft class. I remember Dwayne Haskins, rest in peace.
Right.
He ends up being taken by Washington a little bit later on, and there wasn't a whole lot of success for him. So to be fair, wasn't a draft class rich in QBs. In fact, Drew Lock was actually one of them, a 2nd-round pick by the Denver Broncos. But Kyler Murray was picked first overall. Anyway, Daniel Jones actually has, when you look back on it, under Pat Shurmur, he had his most impressive season, I think, was his rookie year in terms of the stats.
Yeah.
A lot of touchdowns, also a lot of turnovers. That was a
Mhm.
big thing for Daniel Jones. They needed to clean up on the turnovers. But that first game against the Tampa Bay Bucks was
Daniel
really
Dimes. That's when it was born.
right.
Yeah.
Danny Dimes comes alive, and I think that was probably, you could argue that was the biggest highlight of his career. Of course, there's the playoff win in Minnesota in 2022 in the playoffs. That, of course, was great, and he was great in that game. But the sky felt like it was kind of the limit. The sky was, anything was possible for Daniel Jones, and um, it's a decent rookie season. And then Pat Shermer is let go. Eli Manning retires, and they bring on Joe Judge and Jason Garrett. And what happens in 2020 and 2021 is they really dumb things down. And it's a very vanilla, low risk sort of offense. So Jones, he's limiting the turnovers, but he's also not necessarily, throwing the ball deep and making big plays like we had seen in 2019 with a supporting cast that was not great. Odell Beckham was gone at that point. So it's not like he was dealing with the best wide receivers. Darius Slayton, over the course of his career, that's been his guy. They came in together in 2019. But yeah, 2020, 2021, not great. 2020 was okay. And then he gets a hamstring injury as the Giants are trying to make this sort of last-ditch effort in a really bad NFC East to make the playoffs. He gets hurt. Colt McCoy comes in. And then next year in 2021, he sustains a pretty bad neck injury that takes him out for the remainder. There must have been 6 or 7 games left in the season for Daniel Jones at that point. And then it ends up being like Mike Lennon and Jake Fromm.
Yeah. I remember that.
And so then that's it for Joe Judge and Jason Garrett. They are gone after those 2 seasons. So now in comes Joe Shane and Brian Dable.
Yeah.
In what is now year 4 in 2022 for Daniel Jones. And things seem to have turned around. He turned a corner. This was probably his most efficient season. Again, 2019 was the one where the stats kind of jump out at you. But here was kind of a combination of just playing good winning football and not turning the ball over. Daniel Jones' running ability was really always his really calling card.
Yeah.
But what was great in that first game against the Titans, so again, here in Nashville, Brian Dable really rips into Daniel Jones after a bad interception in the end zone. And we hadn't really seen that before where, Daniel Jones, it felt like he was coddled a little bit. And I don't know, from there on, things kind of took off and it was a really good season. He himself actually goes 9-6-1. And they win that playoff game in Minnesota where he was very good. And really from then on, it went downhill. The Eagle game was bad for everyone in the divisional round. And then last season, he gets the new contract, a 4-year deal, technically, but it's really going to end up being 2, a $40 million contract per season, which drew a lot of headlines, obviously. I said it then. I felt like it was the direction that they had to go in. But unfortunately, everything since then was not good. Injuries, play, whatever you want to call it, was a disaster leading us to where we are now.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it just seems like whenever there was a big moment, he can never really ever seem to play well, period. It was always these huge blowouts like versus Dallas or versus Philly, like even in that playoff game. I mean, it just was like not even a competition. I just feel like he never was able to kind of come through in those big games when it really mattered most. You know what I mean? I know he came through in that Minnesota game, but I know some people argue that Minnesota was a little fugazi that year. And, but you know what, that was a win. I'll give him that credit, but I just feel like he always kind of came up small in a lot of big moments, especially like this year, for example, where there were a lot of expectations and a lot on the line, including his starting position as a quarterback, which is crazy. So
that's a really good point in terms of his primetime record, right?
Yeah.
You think about big games,
Right.
Prime time.
Right. I guess that's what I'm thinking of.
Right.
You know what I mean?
He was about 1-15 or so.
Wow. Yeah.
So yes, Daniel Jones, there aren't, obviously when the sample size is 6 seasons, you're going to have some moments, but there weren't many and we were so accustomed to that with Eli,
Right.
where these 2-minute drill, end of game, getting the job done, it just didn't really happen. Like he just did not, he was not able to get the job done ultimately. And look, there was a lot of offensive line issues. We can there's legitimate reasons as to why things didn't work out. I don't, but at the end of the day, this the result here is what it should be. He deserves to be benched, even forgetting about the $23 million injury guarantee. His play is not good enough to warrant him being a starting quarterback.
Yeah, and now, like we just said earlier, Tommy Cutlets is coming in to fill the role. And I guess we were kind of speculating before we hopped on where we think Daniel Jones might end up. I mean, just as a Giant fan, do you see anywhere in particular? Like, just curious your thoughts on that.
It's going to be weird seeing Daniel Jones in a new uniform. That's going to be weird. I mean, obviously, we've seen Saquon in an Eagle uniform, and that's strange in itself. Seeing Daniel Jones for me, that's going to be even stranger. Um, I wonder. I think there's going to be interest in Jones, nothing substantial, but I think I could see him, finding his way to being a starting quarterback. Maybe not at the start of next season, but I think after a few games, there's many examples of that. I mean, look, like Sam Darnold comes to mind, where
Right.
his career kind of he leaves the Jets, he goes to Carolina, then
Yep.
San Francisco, now Minnesota. There's the right situation where he's finding some success, and he's actually a free agent as well. And so he actually will be in high demand in what is a pretty weak QB class free agency wise. I believe Justin Fields might be a free agent as well. But yeah, I think with Jones, it's tough to say exactly where it may be. It's kind of crazy too, like, which would be kind of so typical. I don't think it'll happen. What if he ends up as the backup? Like, it'd be such a classic Howie Roseman move where, like, right now, Kenny Pickett's the backup to Jalen Hurts. Watch, somehow Daniel Jones lands as the backup there. Jalen Hurts gets injured, and then Jones comes on and leads the Eagles to some, form of success. But will be definitely interesting to see where he goes.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking of another reclamation project, like you brought up Darnold, like Baker Mayfield too was another. Happened to be in Carolina also with and then he had that big game with the Rams when he came through and ended up on Tampa and has been crushing it. So yeah, I mean, he might find success somewhere. I mean, I hope so. He seems like a good guy.
He does.
You kind of root for him. It's like you said, it's not all of his fault. It just that's what happens. It's the NFL. It's there's not much wiggle room. So yeah, I mean, I guess looking ahead here, I know we're still somewhat, we're still in the season. A lot of teams are towards the bottom and the draft order is not concrete yet. But I guess, like, is there a quarterback on this draft that you're looking at that you're like hoping that maybe they'll fall to you and you could actually see having success here? Or do you wait and do a bridge quarterback this year coming up? Yeah. What do you think?
It's a tough question.
Yeah.
So this brings you back a little bit to 2023, just to kind of tie the loop with Daniel Jones. He gets that really bad ACL injury, which takes him out for the season after he had sustained another neck injury. And so last year was a chance for the Giants to land one of the big top three. Caleb Williams was always going to be tough to get. The number one pick was always going to be really tough. And not for nothing, Caleb Williams' early returns are tricky. But again, as we just talked about, it takes
still early.
Some of these quarterbacks.
Yeah.
But to not get Jaden Daniels or Drake May, especially for Jaden Daniels to land in division, I'm still upset over that. But that's in the past. The point to say is that it would appear as if last year's QB class was stronger than this year's. And so the top ones that we're hearing about is Shador Sanders, Deion Sun, who's playing in Colorado, Cam Ward at Miami. Jalen Milroe's stock seems to be rising. I'm not quite sure to the point of being a top 10 draft pick. But that's kind of what you're working with right now. And like you said, Casey, it really depends on where you end up in the draft because there's a couple other teams up there, like the Raiders come to mind. The Browns, to an extent, come to mind. The Tennessee Titans as well. All those teams really need a new quarterback. And this is assuming that Trevor Lawrence, which I think that he'll remain with Jacksonville. So, yeah, I definitely think that for better or worse, you do need to draft a quarterback. You can't just wait, for Arch Manning in 2026. You have to do it now. And that's where the timing is so key. This timing may not work out. I mean, on paper, I don't know that it will, but you have to draft a quarterback. And in addition, I think that you will probably see, unless Tommy DeVito somehow does well enough, as I think right now he's trying to show that he can be a backup. I mean, even if it all went well, Tommy DeVito, I'd be stunned if he became a starting quarterback. At best, maybe he does enough to make them feel like, okay, we can maybe go with DeVito as the bridge. I'm skeptical of that though. So long story short, I think it's going to be a quarterback they draft plus a veteran type that they bring in, and maybe the veteran gets the first few starts, and then they'll transition into the rookie draft pick.
Yeah, got you. I mean, I'm hoping it works out because the state of New York football, as a Jets fan and you're a Giants fan, it's been very bleak as of late. You know, these last 10 years have been pretty brutal.
Yeah.
Most of our adult life has been filled with a lot of disappointment. So it would be cool if, you know, maybe one of these QBs that you potentially draft this year can hit, or, you know, like you said, maybe Tommy Cutlets can, you know, sprinkle a little Parmesan on top of some passes over here, throw to Wandale or, you know, Mr. Malik Neighbors.
Yeah, I mean, Cutlets is back.
Cutlets is back. I mean, we'll see. I mean, you got some pieces there. So hopefully, you know, getting the right quarterback and hopefully turn some things around for you.
And Casey, I mean, you know full well that, you know, Zach Wilson,
right,
number 2, like that, there was hope that could be something, and Sam Darnold before him.
Yeah,
just because you draft someone high doesn't mean it's going to work out.
Right.
So,
yeah, there's a lot to it. Hoping for the best, man. But you know, as we close out here, is anything you just want to touch on quickly about, you know, the Daniel Jones run? I mean, I know you talked a lot, but just to put a period at the end of the statement, so to speak.
No, I mean, look, Daniel Jones looked like he really did handle from the ever since he was drafted. He really took a lot of slings and arrows unnecessarily. It wasn't his fault. Look, he's going to go away soon, and I guess it's hard to be that sympathetic. Obviously, we know he got a really good contract. Like, he's doing well in life, but he did handle the media very well. Never said anything wrong. Really, by all accounts, seems like a good guy.
Class act in that regard.
Yeah, wish Daniel Jones well. This is the right decision, and I do hope, again, I hope that there's some losses coming the Giants' way, because I just want that draft capital to be as good as it is. At the same time, though, I do hope that that we're not just going to totally clean house. I'm very skeptical on Joe Shane, but I hope there's a combination where the Giants can lose games, but Brian Daboll has his chance to mold a young quarterback.
Right. Hopefully he can stay competitive in these games, you know, hopefully with a loss that'll benefit you in the draft, but just shows signs of life and stuff like that.
Exactly.
But yeah, we'll get back. You know, Derek does these Giants recaps every week. Obviously, this is a bye week, so there was no game this week. But we'll be back at it. What do you guys play coming out of this bye?
Tampa Bay Bucks.
Tampa Bay Bucks. Look at that. That was the game that Daniel Jones took off. So maybe, I don't know, maybe some magic will be there.
Looking for the first MetLife Stadium win for the Giants this season.
Right.
0-5 so far.
Jeez, rough, man, rough. Yeah, the state of New York football, which we could get into another show, is just it's been tough for us, y'all. It's been tough for us, but I think that'll wrap it up for right now, guys. New York's number 2 sports show, hosted by Derek Fask. I'm the producer, Casey. Derek does recaps of the Giants games, of all the Ranger games that are happening right now. Hockey season is upon us, so you know, come on aboard and you know, join us as Derek talks hockey and talks shop, and you know, any Yankees offseason news as well. We'll be here talking about that. So appreciate you guys joining, and we'll see you soon. Adios.